Hello everyone, glad to see you again. And today we continue to speak about the external independent evaluation. Yesterday we talked about such part as grammar. We looked how to work with grammar task, how to find some hints in the text, and what themes are the most widespread. I hope you remember the strategy for this task and even try to do exercises using it. I must say that the further we move, the more knowledge we're going to get. And the best view comes after the toughest climb. The cliff we are going to climb up during 2 lessons, today and tomorrow, is the writing task. The task where you need to use all your knowledge of English, knowledge of grammar and vocabulary. You also should be creative and use your imagination. That's important. Thus, the topic of our today's lesson is task 59, the writing task. This is the task where you need to write a letter, formal or informal, and you write it in the answer sheet B. For this task, you can get from 0 to 14 points according to the assessment criteria. So, what are we going to do at this lesson? We will speak about 3 types of letters: formal, semi-formal, and informal. We will look at the difference between the styles of these letters. We're going to talk about typical mistakes which you can make while writing. And of course, I will tell you about the assessment criteria of the writing task. Firstly, we should know the types of letters and why we write them. As we mentioned, we have 3 types of letters: formal, semi-formal, and informal letters. Formal letters are usually written to people you don't know well or do not know at all. Such letters are written for official purposes to authorities, dignitaries, colleagues, managers, and not to people of personal contact, friends or family. Informal letters are also called friendly letters, and they are normally written to relatives, friends, or other people you know very well. Semi-formal letters are normally written to people you do not know well, or people you know but you should be polite or you want to be polite with these people, such as teachers, your friends' parents, colleagues, and others. Okay, these letters also have different variants, and let's look at them. The first variant is the letter of complaint. These letters are written to complain about inappropriate service in a restaurant, hotel, or about a faulty thing which you have bought. Their distinctive feature is having not only complaint but also a justification. It means that you need to explain your problem. Let's look at the example here. I still haven't received the goods I ordered, despite the fact that I sent you a check 3 weeks ago. The first part of the sentence is a complaint, and the second is this justification. To combine these 2 parts, we use the linking phrase "despite the fact that." The next type is letters of applications. These letters may be written when we apply for a permanent or temporary job or educational course. In these kinds of letters, you need to write about your education, about your qualifications and work experience. For example, sentence from this letter: I graduated from the university in 2003. I worked as a travel agent. I hold certificates in computer graphics. The next type is letters asking of advice or giving advice. They can be sent to a consultant or a columnist in a magazine or a newspaper. If you ask for advice, you should mention the details of your problem. If you give advice, your letter should contain suggestions introduced with appropriate language. And here we have the example of a suggestion. If I were you, I would make a list of all the careers which may interest you. The next type is letters of apology. They can be written to someone, if you have made a mistake, have failed to perform a duty, or you are not able to fulfill a promise and want to apologize. The main body of this letter contains reasons for the inconvenience caused. In the final paragraph, you can express your hope to improve the situation, or promise to make up for any problems you have been that have been caused. Let's look at the example of the reason which is given, may be given in the sentence. Due to my absence at the time, I was unable to apologize to you in person. Okay, the next type is letters of invitation. They are written to somebody to invite to the event. They can also have such variants as letter accepting an invitation or letter refusing an invitation. They usually contain some detailed information as for the place where the event will take place, or the directions how to go to that place, or something like that. As for letters of the invitation, we usually express the thanks at the beginning of these letters. Also, we can offer help or ask for more information about the event. In the letters refusing an invitation, we begin by expressing thanks for the invitation and give reasons why we are unable to accept this invitation. Let's look at the example where the reason is, thank you for the invitation for your Christmas party. I was really pleased to receive it. And one more type is letters of request. They are written when we want to ask for some additional information, or we answer the request and give information. For example, I want to know what it costs to hire a coach for one day. With semi-formal letters, we have almost the same kinds as with the formal letters, and the difference between them is the writing style. So, here we have letters to the editor. They are written when we want to express our opinion on the statement in an article or program. Then we also have letters asking for advice and giving advice, letters of invitation, accepting an invitation or refusing an invitation, letters of apology, and letters of request. With informal letters, we also have mostly the same kinds, and the difference again is the writing style. So firstly, we of course have personal letters, which are written to relatives or friends to give some news or ask about the news. They usually have a chatty and friendly language in them. Here we also have letters asking for or giving advice, letters of apology, and letters of invitation, accepting or refusing invitation. Sometimes several types of letters can be combined in one letter. For example, if you write a letter to your friend and you tell him or her about your news, you also can give advice or ask for advice from your friend. You can apologize for something or invite your friend somewhere. In order to write a good letter, you need to know the language characteristics of its style. So let's look at a language of a formal letter. So you should start and end a letter in a formal way. For example, you can use such structures as Dear Sir or Madam, Dear Mr. Smith or Dear Mrs. Jones. At the end, it is good to use yours sincerely or yours faithfully, depending on your beginning, plus full name. It is good to use separate paragraphs for every main idea. In this kind of letters, you should write complete sentences, so you must have a subject in your sentence. Also use formal vocabulary such as complex sentences, for example, different types of clauses, non-colloquial English, for example, approximately instead of about. Using direct questions such as could you tell me or would you like to know. The passive voice here is used more than the active voice. As for linking words and phrases, they must be formal. For example, on the one hand or on the other hand. Also, don't use exclamation marks and contractions such as I've, it's, don't, and others. The language of an informal letter. When you start the letter, you should use dear plus the first name of your friend. At the end, it is good to write such phrases as lots of love, take care, and your first name. Also, use separate paragraphs for every main idea. As for the vocabulary, it should be informal. Use colloquial English, idioms, phrasal verbs. The sentences can be incomplete in these type of letters, so without a subject, for example, sorry, have to go. The questions should be direct and active voice should be used more. Use informal linking words and phrases such as so, also, anyway, and exclamation marks and contractions can be used here. As we mentioned before, a semi-formal letter is written when you need or want to be polite. Thus, it is something between a formal and informal letter, meaning it is written in more polite tone compared to informal letter. So it has characteristics of both types, formal and informal styles. Okay, so to start semi-formal letter, you can use such words, dear Mr. or Mrs. plus surname. At the end you can write best wishes, yours, plus first name or a full name. Also use separate paragraphs for every main idea. Here in this type of letter we can use colloquial language and informal expressions. You can use exclamation marks and contracted forms, but use indirect questions in order to be polite. And well, it's time for a very serious job. We are going to talk about the assessment criteria. And first of all, it should be mentioned that the contents and the language of your letter are assessed according to 7 criteria: A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, C, and D. For each of them, you can get 2 points. Well, the points for criterion A are given for the contents of your letter. Here we have 3 situations. You need to describe these situations. If your situation is fully covered, you will get 2 points for it. To do this, you need to use at least 2 extended sentences and answer all questions which are asked in the situation. If you only mention the situation, then you will get 1 point. If you didn't mention the situation, you will get 0 point. And also pay attention to these words. Переписано текст з умови зошита сертифікаційної роботи. It means that you copied some sentences or part of a text from a reading task. You cannot do this because you will get only 0 points for this. As for criterion A, criterion A2, criterion A3, they have the same characteristics. Now let's look at the example. You have received a letter from your English pen friend in which he or she accepts your invitation to come and stay with you in Ukraine for a week. Write a letter to your pen friend and say when the best time to come is and why, what tourist attractions there are in your area, what activities he or she could enjoy during the visit. In the first situation, you are supposed to write about the best time and why this time is good. So to get 2 points, you of course need to mention this time and give at least 2 reasons why your friend should come at this time. Okay, then in the second situation, you should write about the attractions and pay attention to this word. It has plural form. It means that you need to say several attractions. And also pay attention to other words in your situation. And here in your area, it means that attractions should be situated in your area, so in your city, town or village, but not in the whole country. In the third situation, you need to write about the activities which your friend could enjoy during the visit. Pay attention to the word activities. It is also plural, that's why you need to write about several activities. And also, these activities should be done during the visit, not before the visit and not after it. Also, you need to pay attention to the grammar of your letter. Your friend has already accepted an invitation. It means that you have already invited him or her. So when you write, I invite you to come to me, to my city, it will be logically incorrect. Also, the sentence you need to write about the future because your friend is only going to come to you, and when you write, for example, we visited a museum, it is also logically incorrect. One more thing you need to remember here is don't copy the sentence from the task. So don't write I am glad that you accept my invitation to come and stay with me in Ukraine for a week. It is also logically incorrect and you can get only 1 point for your logic. And now let's look at the examples. And firstly, the first situation which we mentioned before. The first example gets 2 points because the time is mentioned to come in August, and 2 reasons are here. Because I have a university admission campaign, and one more, I will be able to give you as much time as possible. Here we also have 4 simple sentences and 2 extended sentences. The second example gets only 1 point because we have time mentioned, but only 1 reason why a friend should come in summer, and only 1 extended sentence. Okay, as for the second situation, the first example gets 2 points because such attractions as churches, Печерська Лавра, Михайлівський Cathedral, Андріївська Church, Хрещатик, the Dnipro are mentioned. They are explained, what they can do there together. There are 3 simple sentences and 2 extended sentences. That's why 2 points are here. And the second gets only 1 point because only 1 attraction is mentioned. It is Botanical Garden, and also we have only 1 simple sentence and 1 extended sentence. And the third situation, the first example has 2 points because here we have such activities as going to the museums, book festivals, also good explanation here, and 3 extended sentences. And the third has only 1 point because we have this only 1 activity, go to the zoo, cafe and the concert, and only places are named here, and 1 simple sentence and 1 extended sentence. So be attentive when you read your task. The next criterion is B. It consists of 2, B1 and B2. The points for B1 are given for logic and coherence of your letter. You can get 2 points if your letter is logical and consistent, if you have good linking phrases, and it is a good idea to use them at the beginning of the paragraphs and inside the paragraphs. And they should correspond with the style of your letter. As for the formal letter, it is good to use moreover, furthermore, regarding, on the one hand, on the other hand, but do not use such as well, oh, and one more thing anyway, and use them for informal letter. As for the semi-formal letter, you can use mixture of formal and informal linking phrases. Remember to pay attention to the usage of such words as conjunctions and expletive words. If the logic of your letter is not so good and you do not have enough linking phrases, then you will get 1 point. If you do not have linking phrases at all and you only have sentences in your letter, no logic, then you will get 0. So, criterion B2 is given for writing style. You can get 2 points if your letter is written in an appropriate style according to the given topic. Those styles which we have mentioned today, and you must include all the characteristics of a particular style which we discussed earlier. So, if you have a correct structure, if you have greetings, opening remarks, you have several paragraphs, closing remarks, ending, and your name, then you have 2 points. And be attentive, your letter should consist of at least 150 words, and pay attention to this sentence, we already mentioned it earlier. So if if your letter doesn't have all paragraphs or doesn't have some of these parts, then you will get 1. And if it is written in not the appropriate style or doesn't have paragraphs at all, it will be 0. Okay, criterion C is given for the use of vocabulary. And if the vocabulary of your letter is varied and diverse, if you use a good descriptive language, you will get 2 points. Here you have the right to make a lexical mistake, even 3 of them, but if they don't prevent from understanding the text. A lexical mistake is when you use one word instead of another. You will get 1 point when your vocabulary is sufficient but not so diverse. For example, if you use the same word all the time, if you in your letter you mention, for example, wonderful place, wonderful activity, and everything is wonderful in your paragraph, then this vocabulary is not diverse. You should use synonyms, and a lot of them. To replace the word wonderful, we can use these words: fantastic, incredible, terrific, marvelous, and others. Also, you can get 1 point if you make more than 3 lexical mistakes, or even 1 if it prevents from understanding the text. And the last, you can get 0 if there are a lot of lexical mistakes in your letter and the letter doesn't have sense. The last criterion D assesses your knowledge of grammar. You will get 2 points if you don't have mistakes in your letter, or you have not more than 8 mistakes which are not serious. What are they? These are spelling mistakes, wrong grammar tenses, use of prepositions, articles, and others which do not belong to the list of serious mistakes. Let's look what serious mistakes we can have. Firstly, this is the correspondence of subject and verb in the sentence. We cannot say he have. It is correct to say he has, or we cannot say we does because we need to say we do. The next, it is the wrong word order in your sentence. The most widespread mistake here is the word order in indirect questions. For example, she wanted to know, does he go there? But we must say, she wanted to know if he goes there. Also, the use of infinity with such words as modal verbs, for example. So we cannot say he must to come because it is correct to say he must come, or he wants winning because after want we use full infinitive and we need to say he wants to win. And also the use of nouns, especially uncountable nouns. We know that uncountable nouns have only one form, so we cannot say advices. The correct is some advice, We cannot say news are, because after the uncountable nouns we use the singular form of the verb, and we should say news is. We cannot say an information because we cannot use article an with uncountable nouns, and you should say some information or a piece of information. And so if you have one of these mistakes, even if it is the only one mistake in your letter, you will get 1 point, unfortunately. And if there are more than 8 mistakes in your letter, you will get 1 point. And if there are a lot of grammar mistakes in your letter and the examiner won't be able to read it, then you will get 0. So let's look at some moments which we also need to be attentive with. If you get 0 for all the criteria A, A1, A2, A3, that the whole your letter will get 0 points. When can it happen? It happens when you don't understand the situations and write something else. For example, you were asked to write about the activities which you can do with your friend during the visit, but you have described a book which you have recently read, and then you will get 0. If you get 0 for the criterion C or D, then the whole letter gets 0 points. If you get 0 for one of the criteria A, A1 or A2 or A3, you will get only 1 point for the criterion C. And if you don't write a letter at all, you get 0 for task 59, the task which can give you 14 points. So try to divide your time rationally and try to do all the tasks in the test. Let's look at the answer sheet B, where you will write your letter. On this slide you can see the top of this sheet, and here is a place for a barcode which will be stuck at the beginning of the test. Here is a place for the codes of examiners, and here are the places where you will get your points. So here you can see the second part of this sheet, and this is the place where you will write your letter. My advice is to write your letter firstly in the empty pages of your test notebook, and only then, when you have checked it several times, then you need to copy it to this sheet. And be attentive, don't cross these lines. Okay, well, let's summarize what mistakes you can make while writing a letter. The first, it is identifying the topic and situations correctly. It means that you may not understand what the writing task is and write something else, but not those topics which you need to cover. The next is identifying the type of a letter and its formality. It means that you don't understand who the reader of your letter is and what is the purpose, and then you write it in another style. The next is omission of one of the situations. Sometimes you think that you need to choose only one situation among 3, but it's not correct. You need to cover all of them. That's why be attentive and try to divide your time so that you have enough for covering all 3 situations. The next is writing only one sentence for each situation. As we earlier mentioned, for covering the situation, you need to have at least 2 extended sentences. So try to write as many sentences as you can. The next is copying the task. It is when you copy the task itself, then you will get 1 point for logic. Then if you have bad logic, what does it mean? If you do not have enough linking words, or they are from another style. Then wrong structure. please pay attention to the structures of the letters and try to remember the correct structure of the letter which you need to write, and don't lose any parts, the greeting, the name, closing remarks. And the last two are vocabulary and grammar mistakes. Be attentive and check your letter several times before copying it to the answer sheet. Okay, and tomorrow we are going to continue to talk about this part of the test, and we will continue to climb our cliff, which is called writing. So see you tomorrow and have a nice day.